Hi, I'm Mark Clegg, and welcome to the Photographer Academy. And today I'm going to be joined by Matt Whitby, an amazing photographer from Ireland. And we're going to be talking about the beauty of the male form. Remember that you can catch up with all our talk photographies as well as all the content on the Photographer Academy. And you can actually visit thephotographeracademy.com for actually any more information. And of course, that's where you can get all the info to join. It's as little as £100 for a year, where you get access to all our legacy content. But if you just want to look at all the talk photographies and be able to actually watch those, then we have a champion membership as well. It's £30 for the year, so kind of realistic. And let's not forget, we also have Xenon Awards, where you can enter each month as a member, or if you're a non-member, you can enter on a quarterly basis as many images as you want as well. So I look forward to actually seeing you and your photography in some way. So without delay, let's get into another talk photography session. And as I said, today I'm joined by Matt Whitby. Take two.
Hello, Mark. Good to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Just to give you the heads up, why we said why I said the take two. Then we did this yesterday, and I had some technical issues, so I do apologise. But Matt, thank you very much for coming back so soon.
It's great to see you so soon.
It's like we've never met before.
Yeah, exactly. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, cool. Matt, before we get going, today's kind of images, we've got a few from the same session, plus some, obviously, we usually look at 8, but we've got a few more. This concept of the beauty and the male form, what are we going to be looking at? So the kind of imagery and everything else.
Well, basically, I've gone down this route of male photography because it was something that I was drawn to. Just a lot of influences growing up, and I feel that there's not as many male portraits out there now. I've curated my kind of Instagram feed and all that kind of stuff, so I am seeing a lot more male photography, and there's so many good photographers out there photographing the male form, but in general terms, it's dominated by the female models. So I thought, the males need a little bit more love in that regard. And what I've found on my journey is there's quite a lot of males who are willing or wanting to get into modeling and to just show themselves on camera and explore that part of themselves. So I'm really interested in pushing that a little bit further in my work.
Cool. So let's kind of start off where I do with pretty much all of our talk photography. Let's talk about you and how it all began. So how did you first get into photography? Because you're a graphic designer by trade, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, I went to art college and did a few courses on graphics, and then I went to university, still in graphics, and then I kind of went into art direction and advertising, and then in 2010 I set up my own design and art direction business, which incorporated a bit of photography as well. So during the advertising years, I would have picked up the camera and kind of done headshots for the agency and been on shoots with photographers as well. So I was kind of directing makeup artists, stylists, casting agents, and working with photographers and getting a lot of tips along the way as to what's a good angle, what's a good way to shoot this, and some of the behind the scenes tricks, not only in portraiture, but food photography, for example, all the ghastly things that happen behind the scenes with a picture of a hamburger being plumped from behind, so there's a lot of stuff that I picked up along the way, which I'm very grateful to all the photographers I worked with. So yeah, graphics and advertising and photography, they all kind of meshed together for me quite well. It was my father that actually got me interested in photography. He did photography himself, and he taught me how to load film onto sprockets and spools and develop it. black bin bag under the duvet method never failed. And then later, how to develop the film and how to print the film in the bathroom. We would usually do that. So and I got quite funky with that as well when I went to college. So that's when I started really getting interested in photography alongside the graphics. So I'd get a bit funky in the bathroom with like wax and paper, tissue, paint, anything I could get under that photographic enlarger just to make things a little bit different. I'd be trying all those things and dodging and burning and all that kind of stuff. I loved it. And then I would actually kind of put those prints into sketchbooks and work them again with acrylics, and in one instance smash, the instant mashed potato. So I'd work all these things like to within an inch of their life, and had loads of fun doing that. So but yeah, I think my earliest memory of photography was finding my dad's darkroom, which was a long room at the back of the garage. I must have been about 6 or 7 or something like that, but it's like a scene from Star Wars, because it was dust free, it was all stainless steel and white, just this enlarger and the developing trays, and just sterile. So I wasn't allowed back in there once I'd found it, but it kind of captivated me. So college was where it really kicked off for me with photography, and I suppose there was a lot of kind of influential stuff all happening for me at that time. So there'd be a lot of influences in photography, like Neville Brody would be a designer I was just obsessed with, and typography, and he worked on all the Face magazines and that, all the portraiture there, and that inspired me. I suppose around the 91, 90, there was the Stephen Meisel sex book with Madonna, which really spoke to me, and I had to go out and buy it, of course. But even his work with Madonna on the Versace account as well was just jaw-dropping for me. I just thought it was just this timeless stuff. So there was a lot of influences, a melting pot of influences that straddled graphics and photography. For instance, like Pierre and Gilles, they took the everyday kind of and elevated it into this glamorous work. And I think it was the Jean-Paul Gaultier Limahl advertising around that time, which really captivated me, which drew on a lot of iconography from Bob Miser and Tom of Finland, all the sailors with the striped top, the muscles, and all that kind of stuff going on. So there was a lot of influences at work in those years, which I suppose as I've kind of aged and got more into photography, they're always there in the back of the head, and I've kind of come full circle, I suppose. So having photographed a whole range of different subject matter as part of when I was in a photography club.
The world of photography is quite new to you as such, especially this kind of project as well, isn't it? So it's not as if you've kind of photographed 100 men in this project yet. It's really its infancy, and I know we've got some images to look at in a minute, and the first one, and there's another image I'm absolutely in love with. As far as the image is concerned, and we'll talk about that again, I hope, because yesterday we had a really great session, except my microphone was rubbish and blah blah blah. Anyway, where's the kind of the driving factor for you in taking this project now? Because once you get involved in a project, some people, and I'll include myself in it, I kind of get really enthusiastic about something for a while, and then I kind of get a little bit bored and I need to go and do something else. Do you see this as a long-term project for you, or is it something you're going to dip in and out of all the time? Or is it because it's just at the infancy, you can't really talk about that yet?
I'm having a ball. I'm having a blast. I'm really enjoying it, and I come alive when I do the shoots. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to do many shoots, as you mentioned, just there's been quite a few things going on. I suppose I'll give you a brief kind of overview of that. So I suppose I was in the camera club for about 5 years, and then 3 of those years I was on the committee doing webmaster kind of stuff. So I was heavily involved with the club, and I got to shoot. I really challenged myself to learn lots of different disciplines for the monthly competitions that were going on. So I'd be glued to training videos on YouTube and anything I could absorb on whatever it was, be it long exposure or landscape photography. I would just go all in and challenge myself. So in 2023, I won Photographer of the Year in the club, which was great. And then I decided that, right, I've done that. I need to kind of move forward. And I reached out to an organization called Minding Creative Minds in Ireland, which pair you with other creatives and mentor you. So I was paired with a wonderful photographer, Ruth Majba, who gave me 3 or 4 sessions and kind of drilled down with me like what it is I wanted to do. Did I want to go commercial and do kind of headshots and go into portraiture, or did I want to go more fine arty and, you know, really push the envelope there with what I wanted to achieve? So I've kind of been leaning towards the latter, and I really want to push that. So she kind of challenged me to set myself a goal of doing a project based on that. It was male portraiture and also facial distortion, which were my key passions based on what I was showing her on ever since college days and stuff. It's always been about that distorting reality as well, and kind of a bit surreal. So she suggested that I do a series of images, and I exhibited those in Kilkenny Arts Week, which the photography club I was with, they always exhibit as part of that Arts Week. So I managed to do that in a few weeks. I got in touch with a friend at the club, Michael Brown, a makeup artist and an artist. So he kindly modeled for me. I'd not really photographed a male before. So yeah, we did makeup, it was a great studio in Dublin, and it had loads of props and feminine props as well. So we would just get like fishing nets and shove that around your head, you know, anything to hand we would just work with and pull it this way and change the angle. And we had a blast. We shot all day, had an absolute blast. It was his first time shooting nude as well. So we did a bit of nude, and then we did a lot of setups with clothes as well. So that was really informative, and I thought the day before I ditched my micro 2/3 camera and a Fuji X-T2 and traded it in for a Sony Jesus, why can I never remember the name of my camera? I forgot it yesterday as well. Sony what's it for? Not the 5. Jesus.
It's a camera.
Anyway, it's a camera, yeah. So we went full frame anyway. Loving it. And I just got 2 lenses, 85 and a 50, and I've just not looked back. I've just been doing that. So so I decided to do that. That was a success. And then we decided to move house, and at the same time my dad got ill and started chemotherapy. So I was kind of positioned to go and visit home. I'm originally from the Midlands in England, so I would go home as often as I would, you know, I could do that and support my parents while they were going through this. But then I suppose last August his treatment wasn't working, so that's pretty much the last big shoot I did, which is what we're going to see a few from, and I'm still mining the results of that shoot. So I suppose last year I probably did maybe about 4 shoots in total in the year. So my my photography has kind of diminished in actual going out and doing shoots, because you've got to get the models lined up, you've got to get the locations and all that, and the time. So all my focus was on family at that time. So I've just come out of that. Sadly, my father passed away in January, so I've come through all that, and I feel like now it's time to kind of push ahead with the photography. And it was great, because I would be able to talk to Dad about my photography, and he would recognize a good shot, and he'd recognize a bad one, you know, so he'd be able to give me some tips and tricks and stuff. So it was really, really nice to be able to talk to my dad about that.
Yeah.
So
very good. Let's move on to the first image. But before we start to discuss it and your technique and everything else with it, how did the camera club react to this kind of imagery? Because traditionally camera clubs are photographing models, photographing landscapes, photographing, doors, photographing products and still life and everything else with it. The male and the male nude don't show their face very much in most camera clubs of the world. So was there a kind of a reaction when you started to actually show this kind of work to them?
Well, I mean, ironically, I shot female models. A model called Lucy Holmes. She's great model. I've worked with her a few times, but I shot her and then I retouched her into some ice, and that became the poster for one of our exhibitions in Kilkenny Arts Week. So that was the winning competition, the winning image from that competition. But it got a bit of flack from some people in the club, because it was nudity again, and you couldn't see anything. It was very tasteful. So I suppose I participated in a few group shoots with people, with models like, the Ivory Flame. Loved working with Holly. And we actually were lucky enough to shoot them at my home. We had a period house at the time, and it was beautiful location to shoot. So a few of us were shooting together. But at the end of the kind of experience, I was kind of coming away with the same shots as everyone else, and I was kind of like, what's creative in that? I don't mean to poo-poo that. I'm just saying it wasn't enough for me. I needed complete control and have an image that wasn't the same as somebody else's, and proof of point was that some of these images from these shoots were being entered into the monthly competitions, and they'd be very, very similar, and they got to a point where there'd be quite a few of Holly in the same competition. So I was like, oh, I need to kind of step this up. But I suggested Michael Brown, the first model I worked with, because he'd offered to pose for the club, and I was like championing this male portrait session. But it didn't happen, and some of the comments were, you have to work harder with a male to get the same engagement in your images, and the female models just are able to go into the poses and do all the stuff effortlessly. And I thought, well, that can't be right, sure. So I mean, I've not worked with out and out professional male models yet. I've worked with models that have done life drawing, and they're very they're very good at that, and they're trying their hand at photography. So they're very relaxed with their own body and the shapes they know the shapes they can make. So I'm kind of deviating a little bit. You asked about the reaction. So yeah, it wasn't really accepted, and I entered a few for competitions, but they were not kind of nudes. They were topless, maybe maximum.
Yeah.
So
I was just, you mentioned about models and things, really, but I think it's just because we see so much female model photography adverts, in our image banking in the head. we kind of remember these either iconic images, or things that we're naturally attracted to. We remember it. It could be a pattern. It could be a font. Yesterday we talked about the Letraset book that both you and I remember. You know, A4 and an inch and a half thick of fonts. Well, who in their right mind?
Essential bedside reading.
For some of us. But again, it's just actually what we get used to, isn't it? It's a bit like flavor of ice cream. I choose chocolate. My wife chooses vanilla. And that's just where we kind of differentiate. In the same way, looking at a model, I mean, this guy here, he's just absolutely fantastic. And it doesn't matter whether he's topless, nude, or dressed. You know, it's an amazing image. I love the lighting. I love the monochromatic qualities to it. I love the finishing. I love the cat's eye. I love the ruffle. You know, everything is put together in the same way as we would if we were photographing a female model. Yeah, it's a construction of an image, isn't it? Whether it's his idea or your idea. Let's talk about your technique, because we've got a lot of black and white images in today. Is it like so many other fine art nude photographers I speak to, that black and white allows us the excuse to kind of show off the work? Does it take away the reality of life because we're removing color? How does black and white work for you in your head?
Yeah, I've heard that before, that, you know, removing the color creates a distance between the image and yourself, so that it becomes less real, less reality, I suppose. And you can play with that and amp that up a little bit more, so that you are bringing the viewer into a different world, and a timeless world, I suppose. And I'm extremely drawn to vintage, Victorian, and, you know, really old kind of imagery, 1920s. I'm obsessed with those kind of eras. I think that black and white plays into, you know, I love the whole movie system with all the Paramount lighting and the, you know, all those kind of old movie star images, the silver screen. I'd love to do the old Victorian shots where they have to stand still for the plate. You know, I'd love to recreate those as well. I'm obsessed with that old world meets kind of new a little bit. So yeah, I mean, this model is he goes by Harry 10 London on Purple Pot, and he reached out to me and we did a shoot in Birmingham, in an industrial studio. I can't recall the name now, but we just had a few hours and we got along famously. He was really up for just taking some good images, and like I said, he does a lot of live modeling. His enthusiasm was off the scale, so we make a good team, and we decided to do a second shoot. So what you're going to see here is a few from that shoot. This is one that I do love as well. Harry brought the rough and the contact lenses, and I should say I had this location booked. It was a 1910 mission church that was converted, and it was kind of a glamping location. And the Airbnb photos made it look like it was kind of just minimally furnished. But so I'd done a whole mood board. We were going to do all these different setups, and got there on the Friday night, and I messaged the guys, because we had arranged a duo then on the second day. And it's just full of heavy, dark wooden furniture that you couldn't see the walls. It was just, so I was like, oh shit. You know, like, course correct, what am I going to do? I was like, so we had to move just all the furniture from one corner just to get some of the character of the building to come through on some of the photos. So a lot of the photos I took that day are against a gray background to give me the most options in post. And as it turns out, you know, the last year or so I've been mining these shots and just doing a lot of posts. So I think I've done enough of that experimental side. I need to get out and shoot more now. But anyway, so we did this. So Harry kindly came along on the Saturday, and he brought loads and loads of props himself, and we just did setup after setup after setup, and we barely ate. We had a cup of coffee break. I think we had half a wrap each, like the entire Saturday, and we just were in our element, just doing it. He's so focused on getting the shot as well, so he was really up for any ideas I had, and he had his own ideas with the contact lenses, and we did I'd never done body paint either, so we did body painting as well, and everything just worked really, really well. I think there's only one setup from that day with Harry that didn't go to plan, and it was just because
the image reminds me, well, it could be from 1920s, couldn't it? It could almost be like middle America visiting the circuses, and kind of, it has that strongman kind of iconic image, that it almost just misses his dumbbells.
It does draw from that well. I think it's got that look, that vibe about it, and I love that. I mean, the strength, the veins on his arms, just so Harry does a lot of cycling and he's very fit, but just the pose there, the rough, you're thinking clowns, you're thinking vintage as well. There's a lot of things going on in this image, and I'd love to say that this was my big idea, but I actually was trying to deconstruct this image afterwards, why I'm drawn to it. And there's a few things going on here, which, as a gay man, I'm kind of aware of, and I'm kind of putting that lens on it. And I suppose it's kind of, the eyes are predatory. It's an older gentleman, an older gay man who's still, in his prime. He's got a great body. He's got this great look. And I was making all these analogies with, the gay scene, and hooking up with people, and just, there was a lot of different things I was looking at here. That, you've got the masculine mustache, you've got the strength, the predatory eyes. There was a few things going on there that I was keen to kind of mine a little bit more, I think. So yeah, I just really love this image. There's so many different layers to it, but it's such a simple image at the same time.
What does this reminds me of Errol Flynn. I don't know why, just straight away. But what does masculinity mean to you in the context of your work?
Well, I suppose I'm drawn to the vintage style, traditional views of how masculinity is portrayed. It's a bit of a minefield nowadays, because you've got the whole toxic masculinity thing and the privileged male and all that kind of stuff going on. So it's for me, it's nothing about that. It's about the beauty of the male form and the strength and the vulnerabilities contained within each man. And I love that you can, like, Harry's very versatile model. He can play vulnerable, and he can look extremely strong and muscled in minutes apart. He's very good at that. He's wearing a female's hoodie that I picked up in a charity shop, and it's drawing on those kind of old vintage photographs again. I added the texture in the background just to give that kind of texture and that. But I suppose his pose here is a little bit vulnerable. It's a bit, he's holding himself close, but he's projecting all the masculinity with the mustache, the hair, those vintage cues. I really love that balance. So it's about, the masculinity is about just the strength of being a male within yourself. And I think the confidence that a lot of the models I've worked with show is that they're really comfortable in their skin, and that's what attracts me. They're so comfortable with themselves, and I think that's what I was trying to say with the snake eyes one, that, you know, almost a coming out as a gay man. It's that being comfortable in your skin, and it's almost like armor as well. Like you develop an armor as a gay man. If like when I came out, it would be the 90s. So, you know, there was a lot of on PC stuff going on, comedy shows still at the time, and degrading gay men, you know, and so, and women as well. You know, there was very sexist attitudes at the time. So I'm drawing on that as well. So that feeds into a few things. But I do love this image because it's so strong, so vulnerable, and so simple again. So
lighting wise, are you a natural light guy, or you're a studio flash guy, or speed light? What's your kind of go-to?
I'm a bit of a whore for the strobes. I bought a 120 softbox, which I'm addicted to, and I just love the soft light. So I bought that just before the shoot. So that's principally what I've been lighting that most of these shots with, unless I've been in a studio, and usually I go for the biggest modifier I can find. But yeah, I'm actually looking at trying continuous light, because I'd like to actually move into moving image as well, which I think might be quite a nice addition to the stills. I mean, I like to work on the stills quite a bit, so that's going to be quite a challenge, I think, to get that in a moving image. I'm one half of a screenwriting team called Whitby and White. So we were on Belfast Voices in 2022, the BBC Writers' Room. So we're really enjoying that, and we have kind of a surreal take on some of our stories as well. So that's feeding into my photography at some level as well. So I think, you know, moving to maybe closer towards a director might be on the cards if I can get it to work. So that would be really awesome to kind of mine that area. So so yeah, but at the moment it's strobes. I'm obsessed with just getting a really clean image and lowest ISO, which is like, I'm obsessed with that, and I need to kind of free myself up a little bit from that, and that's from doing all the photography club stuff and the salons and all that kind of stuff. So I need to push myself there.
What does vulnerability look like in male portraiture, do you think? Is there a difference between a male nude and a female nude? Is a female naturally more vulnerable, or would you think that a male is more vulnerable? I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but how do you visually represent vulnerability, and how does it play its part within your kind of photography of men?
I suppose it does come down to the model, and how well they can portray that. I mean, a heavy or bulky guy is harder to get that. You know, like a muscle, like you're going to see one. Jared, he's a very 6 foot muscle guy. You know, he's very muscly. Harry's got, like I say, he's got that versatility between looking very strong and looking very vulnerable. So the vulnerability bit isn't necessarily as important, I suppose. It's nice. It's a nice quality if I can get it in there, but that's not the be all and end all. I suppose it's working with the model to get the best images, I think. And this image in particular, I mean, it doesn't say vulnerability to me. It's an interesting image. Like, this is probably one of the very few spaces in the location under the stairs where there wasn't furniture. So and Harry just started doing different shapes within the staircase verticals there at the back. So I really like the unnervingness of this. It's a little bit spidery. It takes you down this kind of road of what's going on here immediately, but it's a man who's proud, who's very confident in his body, doing a pose, very very masculine pose, but very graceful and feminine in a lot of ways, and very tasteful because you don't see anything. And I mean, if let's think about if that was a female model there, you know, you'd have all the S shapes between those columns, I'd say, and you'd have the same. You'd have a very similar image, but would it translate exactly the same as you see the feeling of this one? Because that's not naturally an image, a position I would associate a female model to go into in that space. But maybe that's just me.
I mean, we've got a few more images of Harry, haven't we? Another image. Another image.
I could have filled this with pictures from Harry because I've just got so many from that shoot, and I've still got more to do. So yeah. So apologies. I had to sneak some more of Harry in because that's the bulk of my work.
Don't apologize. Don't apologize, because I absolutely love, you know, that it's not about getting one good image out of a shoot. It's having a consistency of good images from your shoot, isn't it? You know, yeah. I was interested when you were saying you were mining, you know, when you kind of weren't either available to shoot or you weren't in the mind frame to shoot, that you were going back to your old shoots and you were mining images. Since I sold the studio in Barry three years ago, I've been mining a lot of the shoots because I was filming 2 or 3 times a week. I had photographers joining me every week in workshops, wherever it was. And there were so many images that, in fact, were never seen because the video boys were going, right, we need your images, Mark, by the end, at the end of day, he's going to start to work on the, I've really enjoyed going back to shoots and going, oh my, I'd even forgotten a shoot.
Yeah.
I put a film live on the Academy the other day and I went, oh my God, that's Molly's first boudoir shoot that I shot. And I couldn't even remember that.
Yeah.
And it was like, we've got loads of films of Molly in boudoir on the Academy, but the very first film, for some reason, hadn't gone live with it and things really. Anyway, go back. It's not about me, it's about you. But I like the idea of the mining, and you shouldn't apologize about kind of lots of images from one shoot, because I think it's great. I mean, how difficult is it today for you to get, because you're in the middle of Ireland, isn't it? About, did you say 2 hours away from Dublin?
I'm about an hour 50 to Dublin, and probably about the same to Cork, and then Shannon would be about an hour away from me. So wherever I shoot, unless I can get a model to come here, which has only happened with one model, incidentally my first model, so on the last image that you'll show, other than that, I've had to travel to everywhere to shoot. So that takes planning, it takes money, it takes, you know, you've got to book a studio and or somewhere to stay as well, hire a car. You know, you've got to do all these expenses before you even get to pick the camera up with the model. So I'm just conscious that, you know, I don't have this. I mean, there's a lot of great photographers on the, you know, just in and around London within striking distance that are offering really great options for a lot of males, you know, underwear shots and lots of different styles. But I'm not in that kind of catchment area, and there's just not the volume of models in Ireland. I think I can count maybe 5 that would be maybe interested in this type of stuff. But I'm getting quite a lot of emails and people reaching out to shoot with me. But unfortunately, just with everything that's been going on with Dad, I haven't had the headspace to do any of those shoots. So I've got quite a backlog of people that are looking to work, and so I need to curate kind of a plan for the next few months and try and get a few shoots in the diary, and honor some of these collaborations that I think would be great to do. So
let's possibly come back to that anyway, kind of thing with it. Let's talk about this image first. What is he wrapped in?
Well, we moved house last May as well, if everything else wasn't enough. So we're only just coming out of that, and the house is kind of getting there now. But we had to rewire the fuse box and everything. So this is just the grounding wire tubing that goes outside. So the day before I was flying over, I was like, right, can I have some of that? So he cut me a few lengths of it, and I just brought it and taped it around Harry on the day. And I just love the cyclic nature of this, that it's just, I mean, there was a few with him, a bit HR Giger-ish, where he's got the in his mouth and they're circling his body and stuff. But I just love the way the black and white especially just brings this out, and his pose is strength, male strength. The tubing is like, I don't know, would that be like the inner workings and virility, all that kind of stuff? There's a few things you could think about what that means, but it's just, for me, it's a cool image in that vintage style. Again, very simple, and this one I didn't do any texturing or anything on the grey background, so this is probably one of the purest shots from that shoot. But I just love the cyclic nature of that. So yeah, I used I think I got some stuff from Amazon delivered as well, because I usually would stay with my parents and base from there and go off to do shoots. So there was some cardboard packaging, and the kind of packaging material that's made out of cardboard. I did a whole like Man from Atlantis theme with Harry wearing this, just stuck this packaging over him. Large bubble wrap as well. I've done a few shoots with that, but anything to hand, like, really. And then I'd raid mum and dad's wardrobe or the charity shops. I'm a charity shop whore, so I'd be like going around all of the charity shops.
I think we're brothers in arms,
Yeah.
I was just looking online. When I was doing my A-level art, many decades ago, I found a book, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically kind of Skyfi Art, and there's this nude females floating in the air, and they were connected like air balloons to the ground with kind of cord. And as soon as I saw this, yesterday, I meant last night to go and actually have a look. To try and find the book, because I was just having a look online then, because I forgot. But I think the artist ended up doing some kind of rock album covers in the 80s or whatever it was. But it's amazing how a bit of tubing can actually complete, like the ruffle in the first image, which I'll say again, I absolutely love. And if you don't enter it into our Xenon Awards in the next year, I'm going to come over there and
I should do it after our meeting. Well,
yeah, good. But yeah, it's amazing how we can turn things into props, and especially with AI now as well. We didn't discuss this at all. If you're just catching us up, yesterday we recorded this for the first time, and I had a problem, so we've had to record it again. But yesterday we didn't discuss AI at all. What's your thoughts on AI?
Well, it'll kill us all one day, I think. But I initially started to embrace it, and I have an artist friend of mine in the UK that is outputting prolific AI generated stuff, and it's amazing. The first thing I always think of, like, what's the quality, like the pixel size? Like, it's got to be quality. But yeah, I've been following a few accounts that are doing male portraiture via AI, and some of the stuff is just astonishing, the level of quality. Um, but your eye can still detect it. You're still, I'm not, we're only, I don't know, a year probably away from, oh, maybe less, from being fooled completely. I don't know, something your brain tells you that something's not quite right, and it could be the smallest of small things. Um, yeah, I don't know where I land on the, is it going to be the death knell for photography or not? Where do you stand on that, Mark? Because
I've always embraced everything, whether I discard it in time. I walked through a gallery with my art teacher at the time, Miss Lace. We took a trip to London. It'll understand to you in a minute, I hope. All right. And basically, we split up, and I was the only one left in the last year of A-level art, and she had a group of about 16 in the first year of A-level art. So basically, she obviously concentrated on them more than me. Because she spent more time with them, and I'd already spent all the time with them. Anyway, I walked through this gallery, and just on the way out of the gallery, she went, Mark, I've been looking for you. Let's walk this gallery again. I went, let's not walk this gallery, please. Not this one. She said, why? I said, I've just walked in. All the paintings are upside down. And I said, I'm just being fooled into looking at them in a different way. That's a really good discussion. Let's talk. And I went, oh, God. So we had to walk through this gallery of upside down paintings, which I didn't really like when they were the right way up.
right.
But what she taught me was to always look at things and accept things for what they are, and to really try and see how they can influence you tomorrow, even if it's not today. As long as you're actively open to anything, you're allowed a comment. If you're not open to things, if you go, that's not my thing, yeah, and you've got no reasonable discussion on it, I'm not on about in an educated way, but just like, you know what, it doesn't appeal to me because of this, and this, there's a reason for you to kind of box it, put it away.
Yeah.
Yesterday we talked about image banking, and I have a big head full of stuff, and every now and again I have to dump it so I can absorb new things in. So for me, AI is just that amazing thing. I think AI in business is amazing.
Yeah.
AI in the arts is amazing. In the same way, people were dismissing digital Photoshop, photographers, honestly, if I go back to the late 90s, photographers were really being critical on Photoshop. And there was only a few of us going, this is the future, this is it.
Yeah.
And I think it's just another part of the next stage, you know, as a failed artist myself in the world of painting. I can't draw for tuppence. You know, I enjoyed life drawing because it's so fast and you didn't have to be perfect. But in a world where everybody's looking for some kind of their own perfection, I know as an artist, I've basically failed before I start. So for me, AI is like having a trainer next to me saying, try this.
Yeah.
And you have to give it the information. I'm a big Andy Warhol fan. I love screen print as well.
Yeah.
And marrying photography with screen print is something that I've always tried to do, whether it's cutting out a montage in, rephotographing, putting a new background on, changing clothing by cutting out a montage in, you know, I love all that thing. Other people will go, not for me.
Yeah. I mean, the legalities of AI, I think the way it scrapes artists' work is probably the biggest thing I'm not so keen on. You know, when it spits out the stuff and part of the artist's signature is clearly visible on stuff, that's when I think it's not good. But there are you know, for example, using AI to generate images for part of a mood board, so you can show your model what you want to achieving a shot. I think that's probably something I might look at doing. And I did jump on board early on and try to. We were doing an audio piece for the writing, and we were trying to get all the AI voices to just act all the different, act the stuff, and then do a filter of some, make it Scottish, for example, or make it Irish. It just wasn't there when I was looking at it. It just, the results weren't great. And I find it a bit hit and miss with Photoshop AI. I do use it to extend backgrounds and to retouch out stuff. I mean, you usually have to start any image by putting a new layer and a decency box over most of the body. Otherwise, it won't adhere to the Adobe guidelines, which I think is pretty strange.
In the world of censorship, the one good thing is AI in the next couple of years cannot produce the image in front of me because of its own censorship. And that's art problems, is that when a computer algorithm is telling us we cannot produce this because it doesn't conform to whatever, that's a problem with art, full stop, isn't it? Segregation, all these kind of things that we've kind of come across in lives, and I'm sure you've come across them with your sexuality and things, really, way more than a straight man would, perhaps. If I was a straight black man, there's going to be a different kind of way that people look at me and treat me compared to a straight man that is white. I still remember having, the invisible disability, the stutter. Until you open your mouth, people don't even realize you have a problem. I don't call it a disability. I call it a disarming advantage.
Nice.
And the benefit that I've got is that I really don't care what you think.
Yeah.
But the problem with art and AI in art, if it's going to restrict us, that's a problem. Yeah. So that's where when I set up the Photographer Academy and all these talk photographies and everything else, I said, I am the controller. I am the controller. Decency is left to me. There has to be somebody responsible for it. And at present in AI, especially in the world of art and photography and everything else, I don't believe there's a human at the end of it.
Yeah, no, especially if you look at Instagram. Like, yeah, I was posting topless shots. Like, heaven forbid you're a professional swimmer. Like, it's like nipple, no, you can't see. I would put photographs, split them across two panels, and if your head is on one side and the nipple and torso is on the other, it's like your image is in fact. It was crazy for a while with Instagram. You couldn't post anything. So now I've got these big, ugly circles over buttocks that you can't. A tiny bit of buttock, like, and it's like, oh, come on. And then you're showing something quite explicit on a reel that I'm like, what's the parameters here? It seems to have gotten a little bit better on Instagram. They seem to have relaxed the hell out of it a little bit, but I'm still seeing a lot of people getting caught for sensitive.
Oh, it's just going to get worse. The funniest thing, I was with a boudoir photographer doing some bedroom with them, and I was discussing this, and they were saying, "Oh, we're getting all the ads banned and this and so on with it." They haven't had any problems with their Facebook or Instagram's accounts, but all their ads are having to go through appeal and everything else with it. I said, "Do you want to know something funny? I'll give you a search and type this into your phone now." And I said, "Type in breastfeeding."
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, because a community has badgered them into going, "You are allowed to show this. You cannot stop us from, blah, blah, blah."
It's trending, is it?
You can, yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous what you can actually, anyway, back to it. I think it's quite an apt image, the one we've got, the two males now, because this is the second day of the shoot with Harry, isn't it? Yeah, and you've got another guy in there as well.
Yeah, this is Jared. I Actually, Jared used to work in Dublin, and we used to pass each other, I think, on the way to work in the IFSC. He's living in London now, so I wanted to. We'd just been chatting for a while, and I think he'd met Harry independently before that. But I invited him along to the second day, and we didn't have too long together, but I was drawn to the difference in size, because Jared's kind of over 6 foot, and he's got strong arms, and his legs are like tree trunk. They're amazing. Like, he does a lot of gym work. So I was drawn to the difference in height and stature, size of the two models. And, you know, Harry's mustache is great. His hair, he's got that vintage look, and he just melted into Jared's arms in this vulnerable role. And I've mined that in a few different. There's a series of those images on my purple pot, which show Harry really quite vulnerable and being cradled by Jared. And this image seems to have like I added the kind of the foliage from, I think it was from a holiday in Portugal. I put that image on. It's just like a plain fabric background, but it kind of gives that Victorian feel again. So a lot of my work does feature that kind of vintage aesthetic, which I really like. And I love the fact that Jared's looking away, but I do have a like for models to be looking directly at the viewer. I do love that. I think it's very engaging. So I'm a sucker for that. But yeah, I think this was a nice marriage of the two types of masculinity and two types of male form that I just thought worked really quite well to show that vulnerable and strength together in the same image. So we had a few other setups where, you know, Jared was wearing a mask, like and suits and all that kind of stuff. We tried to emulate some of the Stephen Meisel imagery from the sex books, with one of the models being naked and the other in a full dress suit. So yeah, it was really, really fun. It was the two guys were just up for like taking shots. You know, we got some kissing, we got some embracing, just tender kind of stuff, you know. It was really, really kind of nice. But yeah, I'm really happy with all those. And we did a few shots with Jared then, separately. So just, yeah, we just had a ball that day. It was really productive shoot those 2 days. And this is Dennis.
This is, yeah. Hang on, before we move on to this image, before you tell me about Dennis, because I absolutely love this image, as you know. All right.
Thank you.
Is there a difference between the generational differences in how you approach a man to be photographed? Because, you know, we are living in a world of men of peacocks now. So in other words, you know, this new generational of man, the 20-somethings, they're shaving their chests, they're making sure they're spending time on themselves, whether they're going to the gym. And I'm not saying that men of my generation in our time wouldn't have preened ourselves to go clubbing or whatever it is, but you definitely, with the likes of Love Island and all the kind of different programs where you see that this type of man, there is more of this man than ever before, the ones who are taking care of themselves and so on. So do you think that there's a difference in the way that you can approach a man in photographing them of a certain generation? Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, and sometimes I wonder, would they be worse than approaching a female model? Like, would they be kind of quite protective over their image? I wonder. Yeah, I know what you mean. Everyone's become quite adept at marketing themselves, and there's a lot more people marketing themselves as a product. you know, they'll have an Instagram or whatever account, and it's just about them and their life, what they're doing, which is fine. You know, that's social media at its best, I suppose. But all these influences and, you know, the Love Island effect. Like, I was on holiday once, and the hotel was full of these Love Island kind of lookalikes. It's quite bizarre because, you know, the women have all those fish lips and the pout, and the men were tattooed like completely and just off. And, like, you know, it was nice to watch and just like take it in, but it's like, I don't know what would we be like if we were that age now? Would we be drawn to, you know, not drinking? Like, a lot of them don't drink. They take recreational drugs, possibly, a lot of them, but they don't do a lot of the bad stuff that we would have done when we were growing up, because most of it, like, you get drunk and get photographed. It's, if that goes viral, that's your currency gone and devalued. Your image online is king. So if you water that down by allowing unsavory pictures of yourself to go out there, it devalues your brand. I know that's a bit advertising speak, but that's where I see it's gone. And we're desensitized with the amount of, you know, you've got to look this way, do the work here, get implants, get filler. It's become the norm. And even filters on, I mean, look at the grief Madonna got with all those filters on her Instagram. I mean, she looks amazing on some of the images, but, you know, it's not a real thing. But yeah, it's a strange one, because I'm drawn to older gentlemen who are proud and comfortable in their body. First and foremost, I have not avoided, but I haven't actually engaged with kind of very buff male models. I mean, Dennis is the youngest model. Dennis is a friend of my co-writer's daughter, Laura, and he saw my images on her Instagram feed on her phone, and he reached out saying, would I work with him? Would I photograph him? So Dennis hadn't modeled before, and what I really love about this image and that shoot with Dennis is I've gotten so many images of Dennis that have gone on to be like a front page image on Purple Port. They've been highlighted on Model Society and stuff, so, and the newsletters and that. So I'm kind of like, yeah, he's got something about him in a lot of the shots. This one is, again, it's got that vulnerability, it's got that feminine French vintage vibe. The fact that he's bringing that piece of clothing around him is kind of making him look vulnerable. And
there's a famous vintage image of somebody who looks like him, but he's a boxer, and he's just got his hands dropped to the side with boxing gloves on. And see this image banking yesterday. I didn't remember this, and I'm trying to kind of, because I'm a massive fan of this image.
Thank you.
And I have to encourage you to kind of really explore this. But yeah, I love it. Back to him though. I have no problem in walking down the high street and going, "Oh my God, you look great. Any chance I could take your photograph?" Now, it doesn't matter if it's obviously if it's a child, they've got to be with a parent.
Yeah.
And that's weird in its own complexity. We're not even going to go that today. But, you know, walking down the high street and seeing somebody going, "I would really love to take your photograph." is something I've never had a problem with. In fact, when I used to run the street photography courses years and years, decades ago, 1 hour of that course was you have to stop 5 people in the street and ask to take their photographs.
Yeah. Once you do it once, it's great. Like,
and they all came back empowered.
Yeah.
They all came back going, I didn't realize, Mark, how simple it was. And I used the analogy of going back to my stutter, not to make this all about me today, but in the good old days of in the school dances, used to walk across the dance floor with all the girls sat on the chairs, and he used to go and ask a girl to dance. Now, I had no problem with the walking across the floor, because all I was worried about was, can I actually get my words out? I know it's hard to believe because I talk so much now. But I know as soon as I've been refused by that girl, all her mates are out of bounds for at least an hour.
Yeah.
So I can't even ask somebody. So the fear of asking somebody has never been a problem. The fear of having the words to ask somebody has always been the problem. And that's that kind of thing you either go and do or you don't. So the good news for us, we chatted about how difficult it is to get models or whatever it is. Today, I have no problem asking somebody to take their photograph. As a 20-something-year-old photographer, I didn't have that problem either, funny enough, because the worst they're going to do is say no. That's my attitude in life.
Well, yeah.
Do you think there's a difference between a gay man and a straight man in doing that same question?
I suppose I'm not sure. I mean, I'm getting a lot of, because my work has homoerotic themes to it. Like, it's not explicit, it's not overtly explicit, but there's shades of that kind of homoeroticism in there, and forbidden eroticism. I love that kind of angle. I'm getting a lot of gay men approach me to collaborate with them. And a lot of them are doing it to push themselves and to see what they're capable of, and just to have some nice photos of themselves. So I've had that more than a few occasions. But I don't think there's a difference, really. I think if I was like, I thought about going to the gym and putting a poster up, or putting a poster in the local shop. I mean, it's quite rural where I live here. I don't think it'd go down terribly well. I wouldn't get many offers. Everybody knows me in the village, but I don't know a lot of people. But I don't know if I'd get any takers for their photograph taken, and it feels like you'd need to almost underline it with, I'm gay, but don't let that worry you, kind of thing. So I don't know. In fact, Mark, I don't know the answer to that one.
The reason I was asking was, when I approach a female in the way that I said, I'd love to take a photograph, what's going through their head, isn't it? The first thing is, oh my God, he's trying to pick me up, or whatever it would be, and blah, blah, blah. That was when I was 20 something. That's a long time ago. Don't need to go there anymore. All right. Now I just love to take a photograph. That's it. And a woman being photographed by or approached by a gay man would definitely feel, I would have thought, people might be throwing stones at their screen at this point. I've got no idea, and I'm not going to shy away from it. But they feel more protected by a gay man than they would a straight man. In the same way, me going to a male model, I'm not trying to get a date. I'm not, and all these kind of things. So I could ask them without any trouble. I've never been worried about asking somebody to get their kit off. Obviously, there's nicer ways to say it, but in the reality, that's
Just pop
can
your
they?
clothes on the stool. Is
Oh, no, 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 no.
old Blackadder.
No, no, no.
Yeah, no,
Um, because I love this guy. This image I need to take. I need to go out of here today and find a 20 something or an 18-year-old. You know, my godson, he's 21. He's buffed up because of all the rugby. He's a beautiful young man. I've never photographed him. And now I just want to photograph him.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
you should. You should.
oh, I'm going to. No, no, no.
Yeah.
I messaged him last night. He
Hey.
said, Kai, I'm going to shoot you, mate. And again, because his dad was a photographer as well,
Yeah.
and I photographed his sister loads, it kind of, he knows what I'm on about.
Yeah.
But
And you know what?
I'm trying to inspire I'm sorry to be rude a minute. I'm trying to inspire photographers to get out of their comfort zones. Everything I do is about ask the girl to dance.
Yeah.
The worst they're going to say is no.
Yeah, I'd be on the line with the girls, by the way, like waiting to be asked.
Okay. Could you walk down the high street and say to somebody, male or female, I'd love to take your photograph?
Yeah, I have, and what I was met this lovely old guy in where was it? In Cork. He was pleased as punch to be asked, and he was doing all this and how do you want me and all this kind of stuff. He was brilliant, and his wife was there, and he was like, stand back, you know, leave me, I'll be just a few minutes. And he was enjoying it, and told me all about his life then and how long he'd been married, and I could just, like, he went on his way happy as Larry. And you know, I love the fact that people who don't necessarily, like, I always used to get can you Photoshop all the age out of me? Can you Photoshop the lines, make me look beautiful? That was the common line I used to get whenever I took anyone's portrait for work or anything. And I love the idea that someone can look at a picture that you've taken and say, well, my God, that doesn't look like me. Or it's projecting an image that they find pleasing of themselves, because we're all our own worst critic. And if we see an image of ourselves that is just, you know, they love, I think that's just the best praise and credit you can get. I love when someone says, it doesn't look like me. I love that whole idea that you can be transported and move this person into a different realm of how they see themselves. So I think everyone should try photography and go out of the comfort zone and photograph, you know, the opposite sex or the same sex. You know, just go for it, because I think there's a lot to be said for it.
Choice of model. Yesterday we touched on this, didn't we? I went back to it. Choice of model, you know, we're very specific when we're choosing somebody, especially in a commercial sense. You know, I had one client that they had to have very Italian looking models to be in the kind of the shot, or we'd need the kind of the gray haired models to be in with like retirement homes or pensions or whatever it would be in the commercial sense. And in the same way, when we're photographing for our own projects, when you mature away from, I'll photograph anybody if they ask me, but when you're actually developing your own project, because this is a hairy man, you know, and a big difference between him and the last young guy. What's your choice in, how would you go about choosing a model for a project?
A lot of the projects, because I haven't done that many shoots in the last couple of years. A lot of the shoots are adrenaline fueled, kind of just make it up as you go along, and I really love that quick fire aspect to it. It's quite dynamic and energizing. So if you land on something, I mean, the original image of this is really not the same impact as with the retouching work on it. and it's, for me, this has got kind of a otherworldly aspect to it, which I like to mine that in my work, just that kind of creepy, ghostly
Supernatural
aspect.
kind of thing.
Yeah. So that's the word, supernatural. The fact that he's hairy, this is Ben, by the way. He was one of the first models I shot in Burton-on-Trent. It was a photography studio there. He's does a lot of life modeling as well. It didn't matter to me that he was hairy, if I'm being honest. I thought it was another string of masculinity, another thread to it. Like you say, he's very, very different to Dennis with the amount of hair, and Harry, for example. They wouldn't have a lot of hair on their chest and stuff. But what I was quite drawn to was the fact that he had so much hair. It was quite, wow, that's that's quite different. So I think there's beauty in everybody, everyone. So I just thought it worked. And the fact that his hair is kind of a little bit wet from perspiration also added an extra layer. And just the stubble, there's some closer up images of his head and shoulders. He's just got this intense dark hair on his face. I got some lovely shots of Ben there. He was a gentleman on the day. So I really liked it. This is shot just in the entrance at the bottom of a stairwell into the studio. So again,
it's a very emotional image. It's very feminine as well.
Yeah. And I was just realizing that the pose is very feminine. I mean, I should have got him to do more of an S on his hip. But yeah, it's that vulnerability again coming through. And that mixed with the hair is what kind of makes it for me.
We touched on AI a minute ago. It's almost like you've blended hairy man with woman, and you've kind of asked it to kind of create an image of that. It's a very feminine image. And I used to get a lot of criticism from the judges years or decades, 3 decades, 4 decades ago. And they said, you're posing as too masculine for the female form. I went, no, it's too masculine compared to classical posing of female form.
Yeah.
But everybody in their own right is different, isn't it? And male animation should kind of be allowed to actually come into female animation and vice versa with that without any trouble. And I suppose because I shot so many dancers, you see that. You see the strength of an athlete, very similar. Yeah. You see the strength, and you see in no matter what sex they are, a masculinity and a femininity because they have it. And they almost allow it to merge together to kind of make them who they are. Do you understand what I mean by that? And I got fed up of. Sorry,
I've got a book somewhere here. Jeez, where is it now? I've got a book. Here it is. I've got a book here which does exactly that, and I saw this and I had to just get it because it's so good. Like, it's, I love that mixture. And yeah, I've had models get into female positions. Like I had one of Dennis with his kind of legs crossed like that, very feminine on tiptoes, and a lot of the female models would pose on their tiptoes, and that gives them an extra grace and elevation and all that kind of gubbins. But Yeah, I need to lean a little bit more into that with the male
Yeah. I did
thing.
in going back to my A level art thing, I did a project based on feline or non-feline. And it was kind of, I was just really getting into the world of photography more and more and more. And my art was suffering because of it and things. But there was something to do with Idi Amin. That's a name from the
Right.
past, isn't it?
Yeah.
But something to do with the feline element. But that was more about the predatory kind of things. And I'm not really an educated man, if that makes sense. I'm more of attracted through the arts to different things, and these the paintings I got inspired by to go. But I think that's where I first began to really explore unconsciously, I think, about animation of bodies and pay, you know,
Mm.
when you go into the life class to learn to draw, and I was given special permission by my parents and the school because of photography, my art was going down. And to get into art school to do the foundation course ready to go on to do three-dimensional design, um, I was told I had to go to life drawing. And of course, all nudity in night school and everything else. And I was not 18 at the time and so on. I had to have special permission. But when I saw the life models, and I know we talked about life models yesterday, funny enough, didn't we? But the life models, they have both sides. A true art nude model has female and male uh, emotions and posing and animation and everything else
Mm.
with it and things really. And that really helped me, I think, in my eventual progression. A body is a body.
Yeah.
People are a person, no matter what they kind of assign themselves to. But as far as how they stand and how they walk and everything else with
Mm.
it, um, that's the representation I believe as a photographer. I need to represent them as a portrait photographer if I'm
Yeah.
taking a realistic image of them, or if I'm trying to put a personality for my own use, as it were, into somebody. That's that animation. Not sure if we've gone off
Well,
tangent here or not.
you take someone like Grace Jones, or an old ads there where she was doing I think she was advertising a car. You know where the head comes out of the sand and
Yeah,
opens, and she shoots out in the car. I mean, her androgynous look with the severe haircut and all that kind of, the blazers. That's very androgynous, very masculine. But it worked so well.
yeah,
Um, but if you put Grace Jones in, the hair or even just bald head or whatever, but had her pose in a female way, where even wearing the masculine stuff, it would give another angle. But yeah, I think we play to the types, don't we? Masculine is masculine, feminine is feminine. If you're photographing a woman, you want to make it as soft and as feminine and sexy as possible. If you're photographing a man, it's strength, it's strength and virility, really, isn't it?
yeah.
Um,
So, Matt, this image, supernatural in that same theme kind of thing. What's the story behind this one?
well, I call this one the Rapture, and I kind of am obsessed with supernatural, as we said. Um, this is a model called Dominic, straight guy actually, and we had maybe 3 hours at this location. This was a schoolhouse that my husband and I were going to renovate. We purchased it a couple of years ago, but with everything going on with Dad and everything, we decided not to pursue the project. So um, I'm kind of gutted we didn't do more shoots in this location because the light coming through the windows was just astonishing. So this is a very simple shot. Just got him to jump up, freeze the action, and then added some retouch just to make it give that rapture vibe. I just love this in black and white. I should have probably given you the black and white version. Probably would have fitted in with the set a little bit more. But I love the ochre tones and the greens and everything in this too. So Yeah, this was just very. I just love this image for the supernatural aspect. It's a little bit different to the rest of the images.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, just a very simple shot. I amplified the shadows and everything in this. So yeah, that's pretty much this shot. I really like it though.
And in the post production, are you adding light trails in with this, or
Yeah,
what's the technique?
few layers. Kind of lots of different layers of little orbs and different opacities, just to give that kind of poltergeisty vibe and the kind of supernatural. There was also a path blur, I think, on this as well,
Mm.
which I'd seen a video on that. So I was like, oh, I'll do that. And that's what led to I didn't look at this going, I'm gonna do a rapture thing. It was just him jumping up and I was gonna make some motion and try and elevate the image into something else. So the rapture came out quite organically from just messing around with the image. So
Cool, love that.
this is Nigel. Nigel WHP is his profile on Purpleport. He reached out to me to do a few images that he curated a few images that he wanted to kind of recreate from various model sites. And I said, yeah, why not? You know, drop down there with the lights. I think we had 3 hours as well. So we were working through the images and there was a mixture of nude and kind of clothed images. But he likes to have the vape, does Nigel. So, and he's got all these great tattoos. So he was just having a break and he was like, do you mind if I have a vape? But just, I was hooked. The moment I saw the smoke coming out of his nostrils like some bull, it was just amazing kind of visuals. And I was like, can we just go off brief here? And I took loads of shots of him. And then he said, well, what about this hat as well? And then the sunglasses came out and we built it up there. Just very simple. But this just brings in all of those Tom of Finland iconography and the Bob Miser stuff, and just all those images in the back of my head came to fruition. And I was like, I was like a little kid. And I think his review of that said, like, you know, he just came alive or whatever when he saw what I was getting on the camera. So yeah, I kind of mined this a good bit, and I've got another shoot with another model in Derby actually that I want to do, which we haven't been able to get to. But he smokes the real cigarettes, and I want to go do a shot with him. So I don't know. There's some. I'm an ex-smoker as well, so there's probably some of that going into it. But yeah, this is just the height of masculine and gay fused together with, you know, I added the texture as well. And this is just in his living room. He does a lot of shoots, invites photographers to photograph him in his home. So it was a very simple shoot.
Do you think if we removed the hat and the sunglasses, it would still fit in the kind of gay image?
Well, I actually have another image on my Purpleport which shows him without that, and he's kind of a bit lower, and he's got the vape, but it's coming out of his nostrils like some great ball. It's very intense. And then I retouched in like a bar kind of like a distressed environment, windows and stuff at the back. And I really liked that. It was a hard toss up between that image and this image, really. So if anyone's interested, it's on the site.
I'm not sure if you can answer the question or not. How do you think the public would perceive the image in the two versions? So if they were, you know, yesterday, going back to yesterday's interview, yeah, sorry about that. It was really good. That's all I'll tell everybody.
And it's amazing because we're talking verbatim like we were.
We are. I know. I'm so sorry. But I really did enjoy it. If we were showing the photograph of him without the glasses and the hat to somebody, and we talked about every body, isn't it, really, you know, the male body kind of thing with it, and then we show them the image with the iconic hat and glasses and so on with it, do you think they would move in a mindset from straight man to gay man just because of the propping?
They might do, yeah.
Is
Alternatively,
that
they
good or bad?
might not. They might not. I don't know, because a lot of these, I mean, it's overtly gay to me looking at it, because of that history with Tom of Finland, and you know, the hat is very master subculture kind of vibes.
Do you know what it reminds me of?
What?
I'm just trying to think of the film name, but they basically do the stripping.
Full Monty.
Full Monty.
Yeah, see, it
So
could
in
go
fact,
down as that.
yeah, he's a straight man. That's his hat, that's his prop, that's what he's going to use
Yeah.
to cover up with and things, you know. But it's amazing, isn't it, when you start to talk about something a lot, how all of a sudden it gets wrapped up in that conversation. Whereas if this was a portrait of each one of the full Monty actors, we wouldn't be talking about it with any reference at all to homosexuality or masculinity, or it's because we've opened that conversation up.
You know what's really interesting is that I'm fascinated by gay culture in the 70s and 80s, where gay men would adopt a very masculine persona, like the Tom of Finland look. So you'd get the mustache, the clone look. So this is leaning into that clone look, but it was born out of a need to hide in plain sight, and also then when they were out clubbing and stuff like that, it would be amped up to the max as a super signal that they are gay and they're into this and that. It was very shorthand for gay culture. So I love that history of where we were and how that's like. Now everyone knows everything about gay men, and you know, gay men are everyone's friend, and you know, people are going to gay bars. There's more straight women going to gay bars possibly than gay men nowadays, but gay bars were an essential part of gay culture for years, decades. It was underground. Like in the 30s, it would be a lot of straight men and effeminate men meeting in secret, and then that's gone all. It was underground, and you know, you had all the raids and everything in the bars in the 70s, the 80s, Stonewall and all that. But then it's gone the opposite. It's gone like we've got rainbow pelican crossings and all that kind of stuff. I personally think maybe it's gone too far. I like a little bit of that mystique and our own private world. I quite like the fact that we had an identity that was our own. It's the doors have opened up and everyone's seen behind the curtain, I suppose. And I kind of like the little bit of mystery that was there before. But at the same time, saying that, the progression and the equality that we have now is just amazing. That it's so good to be gay now. You know, it's so acceptable to be gay now. So thank God we're not in those times where we're persecuted and made the butt of jokes, you know. So I love the fact that this image embodies that culture, but at a time when it's not necessary.
I still got that image of, I don't know, it's kind of black leathers, guy leaning against a doorway with wrench in hand, Uh,
Peter Berlin. He's
that's it. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah,
And it's that kind of iconography again. It's that
yeah,
image banking in here that is kind of that's what you draw the reference to, isn't it? You know,
yeah,
and it's I suppose when you're dealing with models, if you're a dancer model, if you can have reference to dancers, they kind of pick up the pose or whatever it is, and in the same way, a male model, the female model, it's just about how you kind of reference stuff. I wonder how, you know, this new breed of peacock man. Um, I'm not even sure if they've got a name yet. Have they? This 21-year-old who looks amazing and preens himself. And I mean, there was a program on a couple of years ago about a couple of Welsh boys from the valleys, straight boys from the valleys, but they were spending like £1,000 a month each on looking good. I was
wow,
like,
okay.
they were living life on a credit card
Yeah,
to make themselves look amazing and feel amazing and everything else with it. It just seems to be, like you said, about living life on an Instagram account, and they've
yeah.
created this brand or whatever it will be. Yeah, I'm sure we could talk about this a lot.
Well, I mean, if you go to the extremes of that, it's the plastic surgeries that people have, the filler, all those kind of the implants, and they become this walking doll or this walking piece of art, I suppose, is another way of looking at it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I was like, I don't know, it looks painful, some of it, you know. It can't be comfortable having
no.
lips that are so big you can't eat an apple. Well, there's a challenge. There's a slap
And
down challenge now.
let's move on.
Yeah,
This next image is kind of under this mythology kind of thing again, isn't it? It feels a bit surreal to me, at least.
yeah, I call this Spider-Man, and this is just literally Nigel squatting down on his sofa, and it's turned on its side. So I've removed all notion of the sofa, and it's not a jet black; it's kind of off black background, which I think helps it. It's kind of that fine art kind of vibe to it. But the tattoos, the shaved head, the beard, the muscles, they all kind of feed into that masculinity and that kind of strength. Um, you haven't got the vulnerability, I don't think, so much in this one, but it's a little bit more predatory, like the rough and the reptile eyes, the one of Harry. I think it kind of marries in with that a little bit more. So it's a little bit more. He's ready to pounce, poised. I just really love this image and this was a good example of, you know, not being able to go out and shoot so readily, but having all these images that, you know, how can I elevate this image into something that's not a model squatting on a sofa or, you know, leaning on a sofa? How can I make it something different? So it was a good exercise.
What have you learned about yourself or about your style of photography from the kind of the project that you're working on? What have you learned?
I've learned I'm getting more and more obsessed with black and white, I think. And that just each model I photograph, there's just so many different ways of doing the shoot and getting the different results. I'm amazed some of the images that come back of some of the models, like, you know, Dennis, for example, who hadn't modeled before, just the quality of some of the posing is really quite astonishing. So no, I've learned just to quell that imposter syndrome that I suffer from and just relax into the process. And there's also the sure, we can fix it in post if it doesn't all work out. I'm a lot more confident that any mistakes I can catch later on, so don't worry about it, just have fun.
Yeah.
Keep the shoot as relaxed as possible. Have your coffee breaks, have your chats, have your laughs. Like I made all of the models laugh, and I've got shots of all of these guys laughing, which I send to the guys when I'm retouching them. So I really love those kind of behind the scenes things as well. And like I said, I learned some good tricks from some of the photographers just to get that natural reaction in some of them, so they don't look like they're waiting for the shutter to go, you know. So
this next image feels very biblical.
yeah, this is a good guy, Mark. He's a burlesque performer and a florist. He owns a florist company. He brought a load of gear with him, like netting and costume jewelry and floral flowers and other bits and pieces with him. And there's a fan going, he's got the netting, and he was just in his element. He was just like, you know, given the shapes and given the vibe. Just really, yeah, it's got that timeless quality, a bit of Lawrence of Arabia meets, I call it the moth, because it's got that kind of creepy supernatural vibe to it as well. The beard is what's really selling the masculine aspect. It's just such a full beard, and you know, it's a meaty beard. It's a good beard, but the netting is purely feminine, and I don't know, just the movement in that. There's a light bit of texture going on in the background there on the grey background, but yeah, I mean, he's got some bone structure as well, Mark. He's got a really good shape to him, his face.
He's got a beautiful face. His eyes are stunning.
Yeah, he's got a fantastic look. We're talking about doing another shoot soon, hopefully.
Yeah, I look forward to
he's
seeing
actually
the
Dublin. He's actually Dublin based. He's one of the 2 or 3 models. 3 models. I've only shot 3 Irish models where I haven't had to fly. So yeah, I need to focus on getting them back and doing some more.
Yeah, great. Okay.
This is the last image. This is Richard. He's based down in Cork. He actually, fun fact, I used to work in a nightclub in Birmingham when I was at uni, and he was around that time as well, and he knows my old manager up there, Bill Gavin. So a little blast from the past, but yeah, Richard was when I very first, after I had the mentorship, I was trying to find someone to photograph who would do an art nude and be comfortable with that. Because when I first started looking, I didn't know anything about Purple Port or Model Society or Model Mania or any of those things. I was just starting to get onto those after looking, just general search. And he was advertised as a life model, so I got in touch with him and then found Purple Pot, so I started talking to him there. He dropped off on his way up from Cork to Dublin, and stopped off in Tipperary, and we did a few hours. He just said to me, what did he said? I'm your piece of meat, mold me, put me where, you know, tell me how you want me, what you want me to do, I'll you know just direct me, basically. And he was a lovely guy. His eyes are off the chart. Like you don't see them quite as intensely as other shots of him, but Richard's eyes, I was just amazed by. You know, like they're so engaging. And he's a few tattoos. He's an older gentleman. I loved everything. Like he just has his intensity to him, and just the texture, the painterly texture I put on the background, I think just elevates this shot. It's great in black and white, and again, I was umming and ahhing which one. I love the green. I do like green though. So that's what you got today.
Matt, absolutely brilliant. It's a different interview from yesterday, isn't it?
It is totally different, yeah.
And I love it, and that's the whole point of talk photography. We could talk about the same images in a different way, and I'm sorry that you don't get to see it all, guys, because I really had a great conversation with Matt again. Look, if you'd like to see more of Matt's work, I'd love you to, in fact, head over to Purple Port and just look for Matt Whitby Photography or use the link. And I'm sure you'll get inspired and everything else. And Matt, I wish you all the best for everything that you've got ahead of you. I know that life's been a little bit kind of gone in a different direction for you over the past year and so. But I'm sure you're going to be able to actually kind of get that creative part back into the photography, because I know you kind of been doing a lot of other kind of creative projects as well with it. I kind of really want to just leave on one thing. What advice can we give photographers who want to start to explore a deeper, more personal themes in their portraiture? And how do we encourage more male or female photographers start to explore shooting more males? Because that is something we've got to encourage, because it's not done enough of. You know, it's almost too easy to book another model that is, 25 years of age, dancer, long hair, blah blah blah. It's, and if that's what it attracts you as a photographer, then that's good. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But as far as camera clubs or small groups are concerned, that's really what I'm interested in, is diversity in kind of subject matter that we're photographing. So how do we get them to shoot more men? And what advice would you give to photographers who want to explore a deeper kind of side of a project?
Well, the second part first, I think just dive into it and don't, like I'm having the best fun just experimenting and trying things out. I'm not thinking about things too deeply, and sometimes a lot of your ideas come when you're not thinking so deeply. Just have fun, get in there, and don't worry about it too much. Make mistakes if you have to. It doesn't really matter. Just have fun, go in and do it. Photographing men is a slightly more difficult ask, I'd say. I think photography clubs, they do have sessions where, a lot of clubs do, where you would photograph members or other people. If they bring a model in, they're usually a female, but when they do like the members shoots, there's a lot of men who are up for it, and I've been blown away with some of the head and shoulders that have been taken from members of other members, and like they could easily I love this. Like anybody can have an amazing portrait taken of them. It's just finding those people who are prepared to go with your vision and to trust you to get in front of the camera and do that. So it's about inner confidence and just trusting the photographer. But I don't know how you get more people to photograph men. If they're not skewed, but if they're drawn to photographing females, there's a certain aesthetic that they're looking to achieve. So I don't think you're going to convert everybody in that discipline, but maybe injecting a male into a duo shoot, or that's probably a safer way, so that you've still got the female aspect to lean on and that you're familiar with, but you're injecting that male companion into the shoot. That's what I'd recommend.
I can pretty much guarantee if you walk down to the local Amdram society, you will find a whole host of mixture of characters for you to actually kind of use as your next muses and things, really. So I'll just encourage you, and I'll end this by kind of, Matt, you've inspired me, and I think you've inspired loads of them. So I wish you all the best on your future projects and kind of taking things to the next level. And I'm very sorry that we had to do it again, but I'm very pleased we had to do it again.
Do you know what? I'm pleased we did it again, because there was a lot of waffle from me yesterday. So thank you so much, Mark. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure. We'll see you all. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.